This episode of Stories Inside the Man Cave is brought to you by our good friends at Honest. A brand new name, but the same quality remains. Honest Plumbing and Air is the new name. Give them a call at the number on the bottom of your screen. Honest Plumbing and Air, where a handshake still means something. All right, we're going to take a different route for this episode, and you know the guy. He's a good friend of mine and was a colleague for a long time, an icon in Austin, especially in the sports media. He inspired me. He and his wife created an organization called Parenting Aging Parents, and when my mother, about 2 years ago, I started noticing a decline, got really not in a triggered place, but I started thinking, I need to get ahead of this. And I contacted Mike Barnes here, and he led me down a path of not only where I could educate myself, some resources, and a law firm. And this law firm, Barnett and Leuty, really started this journey for me. And Mike, when you talk about estate planning and death planning or life after, how do you go about that? Because that's kind of been my goal for everyone who watches Stories Inside the Man Cave or listens, and then all of my friends. What's your first piece of advice when you start going down that journey?
Start early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so hard for most of us to do.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to admit, whether it's us or our parents, we don't want to admit that someday we'll be gone or they'll be gone. Yeah, I know you were like that.
Yeah.
I talked to you a few times back when we were working together about your mom and about the house and about all kinds of things. And you were open about it, but you didn't really want to do anything.
Right.
And that's how most of them, I'm guilty too. We're all like that because we all think we're invincible, or we just don't want to face it, or whatever it may be. But you've got to start early. Now, that doesn't mean that you're planning the funeral and what's going to say in the program. You don't have to go to those extremes, but you got to start talking about things about how, okay, mom, dad, do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? What else do we need? Do you have any debt? What kind of income do you get? Just stuff like that, just so that so that you're more prepared. What Kim and I like to say when we give lots of speeches and lots of presentations about this is that no matter what happens, the crisis will come. Unfortunately, the crisis will come. But can we lower that crisis level down so that all we have to concentrate is mom's in the hospital or dad's sick or whatever it is? Let's just concentrate on that and not have to worry when the doctor says, and she had a shingle shot. Kim loves to tell that story about a doctor said, has your mom had a shingle shot? And Kim said, Mom, have you had a shingle shot? And Kim's mom said, I don't know. I guess so. It's like, that doesn't help. But if you know it ahead of time, here, I've got it written down right here. Here's when it happened. That helps when you know exactly who the cardiologist's name is, when you know exactly where the insurance is or who the Medicare is through, all kinds of things. If you just know these things, so you can concentrate completely on mom and her being sick, or dad and him being sick, whatever it is. Just concentrate on that crisis and not worry about all this other stuff. It just helps so much.
That's sage advice, because what seems like a lot, which it is, can be minimized. And, before I continue, I definitely want to thank our sponsors for this show. Honest, now Plumbing and Air. It was Honest AC and Plumbing. New brand change here, and Hargrove Roofing. Know who's on your roof. Kind of do. You don't want random people, but Honest and Hargrove Roofing, they do a great job, and they're local too. And be sure to hit like and subscribe on our YouTube page, Facebook, all the social media platforms. It's almost become to where you almost lose track. Wait, do I have this social media platform? There's like a dozen of them nowadays, but we appreciate you for liking and subscribing. The Parenting Aging Parents platform, how did it start? And I know that I remember when it all started, but it has become such an influence, a positive influence, not only to your friends and family, because that's how the networking began.
Mm-hmm.
People telling, sharing, liking, and you've grown into what it is now. How did you get it going, and what is the feedback now? And you obviously welcome everybody who needs it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Truthfully, it started almost exactly 4 years ago. It was 4 years ago in December in 19. So right before COVID, if that helps you take a grasp on how long ago it was. My mom's Alzheimer's. My mom has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
She's had it for a while, and her memory is slowly, Alzheimer's is such a slow and terrible disease, but her memory's slowly been going away. And back around 19, my sister and I talked to my dad and said, look, mom's Alzheimer's is getting worse. You're doing a great job taking care of her, and it helps that you're in independent living, so you don't have to go anywhere. Meals are right there, and you're basically taken care of as far as not having to leave the complex for hardly anything. But she's going to have to go to memory care. Not today, not tomorrow, but pretty soon, because it's going to kill you and her if we don't put her in memory care. And my dad was great about it and said, I trust you. Y'all are in charge. My sister and me, you're in charge. So my sister and I went in December of 19. I went up there for a doctor's appointment with them, with my mom and dad. And after the doctor's appointment, we said, let's go look at some places. We knew there were 4 memory care places within a couple of miles of the independent living place where they lived. And I went in with the attitude that was kind of like looking for an apartment in my 20s. Like, let's just make sure that it has a nice size closet for mom's clothes, and, make sure it looks nice. And okay, that'll be easy. We go to those 4 places, and nice people, but they're all using all these acronyms and, stuff like CCRC, UTI. It's like, I have no idea what you're saying. I'm totally confused. I don't know what questions to ask. And I came home from that, and, it was up in the Dallas area. I drove home that evening and came into actually this room. Kim was at the computer, and I vividly remember saying, you know what? I felt really prepared going into this, and I am so overwhelmed. Most people don't feel that prepared, so they're really overwhelmed. I feel like we should start something. I don't know, maybe a Facebook group or something, because I think a lot of people need help. And she laughs at today because she looked up at me and she said, that doesn't sound like fun. So yeah, between that and then COVID hit, and plus because of my dad loves my mom, and they've been married now for 63 years. At the time, it was coming up on 61. But it's hard to say goodbye because they don't live together anymore. So he kept putting it off. Like, okay, let's wait until we need to sell. We're going to sell the house, so we need to wait till after that. Well, let's wait till after the holidays. Holidays mean so much to mom. It's like, she doesn't really notice the holidays unless we tell her. But okay. Okay, let's wait until after her birthday. Let's wait until after anniversary. Finally, in March of 21, so almost a year and a half later, we finally moved her. And I posted something on Facebook about, this was a tough day. I drove up to Dallas that morning. My sister and I drove my mom to memory care and dropped her off. And it went a lot easier than we expected, but it was a tough day. It was tough on my dad. And anyway, I just posted something on Facebook. And so many people, besides showing empathy, like, oh, Mike, sorry about that. Oh, feel bad for you. It's going to be okay. If you need anything, let us know. That type of thing. So many people said, oh, yeah, I've been through that. Oh, yeah, that's coming up for me. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's something I'm worried about. That Kim realized, we're not alone in this. So many people are going through it, but nobody talks about it. It's not, unless you're a Sean Clinch who tells everybody everything. Nobody likes to talk about this because nobody likes to say, yeah, mom has incontinence. What do you think about that? It's like, no, it's gross. It's like, ugh, why bring that up? Why do you want to go in and say, yeah, my son's graduated from A&M. My daughter's graduated from UT. They're both doing great. But my mom has Alzheimer's and she doesn't recognize me. It's like, you just don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
you don't want to bring the party down. Like, wow, Mike's fun to be around because all he does is talk about his mom not knowing him. No, you don't want to be that person. So because of that, everyone is in silence and they don't talk about it. They don't get help and they feel very alone. Well, because of seeing all these posts, Kim got on board, said, you're right. Okay. You're right. We need to start something. So in April, we started the Facebook group, and we've been trying to build it ever since. And we're coming up on 10,000 people in it, with somebody from all 50 states in the nation and some other countries as well. And it's just it's great seeing. It's sad, but also great seeing it's able to help so many people, because there are millions of people out there who are going through something like this who need the help. And once they find out about parenting aging parents, they jump on board and they love it.
Now, what you're seeing right here, those are the logos, and you saw some of the pieces of the Facebook page. And, one thing that I can relate to this, a lot of the things that you have mentioned, I went through. My mother passed away in May, and I was watching from afar. And I'll be honest, I never shared this with you. My mom a couple of times asked, "How's Barnes's mother?" She knew about the journey.
Sure.
And then looking back now, I think it was somewhere at the beginning or late 2019 is when her dementia started. Mm-hmm. Seriously. Yeah. And I think it was part because she had double heart valve replacement surgery. And part of that type of surgery is a lot of people, I'm not going to say they don't tell you. Small strokes happen.
Yeah.
Small strokes happen. She had a few of those. And then just progressively, and even in 2021, even in late 2022, right about this time last year, she asked, "Where's your mother living?" Where she asked.
Yeah.
Well, and then now we're talking about lymphedema. We're talking about all types of issues and in and out of the hospital, the falls. It's funny that I'm in the physical therapy space now. And then she passes in May, and and this is what motivated this. I think I think it's funny in a way that God has magically has placed you and Kim and inspiring people, because a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know. And now I'm trying to not give the same way you are through this podcast platform, but to educate them and direct them to you and Kim. Because I think you guys have, I don't think the parenting or PAP, what do you want to, there's your acronym.
That's right.
Has become a valuable resource.
Yeah.
What's the first thing? Because there are some essential documents, and I made a graphic, and feel free to add or kind of elaborate, because these are the documents that I think, in my opinion, that I've learned through our guy, Keith Leuty, attorney at law, one of the greatest human beings, he and Mr. Barnett. These are lifesavers for me. I got these done about a little over a year ago.
Yeah. And
for some reason, I was so excited about the word will, I put it in twice.
Number one is the biggest one, because it applies to everyone. I mean, everyone needs to have a will and needs to have both POAs, power of attorney, the durable, which has to do with finances, the medical has to do with your medical situation.
Yeah.
And people are able to take care of you, talk to doctors, etc. Everyone needs that. The Ladybird deed, it can be important, but if you don't own property, of course, it doesn't matter. But that it's a big thing about what happens to your property when you pass away and going to your heirs. And the Medicaid trust, a lot of people, that Medicare and Medicaid is so confusing. It is so difficult. And plus you're dealing with the government, so that makes it even worse. But there are some pluses and some minuses about Medicaid. We won't go down that journey, but that's something to consider about the revocable and irrevocable trust for Medicaid is basically you're moving your money different places, putting it into a trust, and that can help your parent qualify for Medicaid, which Medicaid, that means that the government is basically paying for most of your medical expenses. But there's so many limitations, and especially if you're looking for assisted living or memory care, something like that. So you got to be careful about that. And not everyone wants to go down that road, or they have too much money, because it's amazing how little money you have to qualify. Anyway, the Ladybird deed and the Medicaid trust, they can be important, but they don't apply to everybody. Number one applies to everyone. You must get a will. We had somebody, I think I've told you this before. We had somebody in our group. about a year ago posted, just a question, said, "Hey, my dad's 87 and his dementia is getting worse and worse and worse. He doesn't have a will. What should we do?" It's like, no, are you kidding? But by then it may be too late, because if they're not of sound mind because of the dementia, can't have a will. And if you don't have a will, boy, probate's going to take forever to clean up the estate. It's just not good. And the power of attorney is huge too, because if something happens, like with your mom, something happens to your mom where she goes down or she's in the hospital or something, and you need to take care of her, you need to pay bills, or you need to do something while she's still alive, you need that power of attorney. Otherwise, again, you're in trouble. Then you got to skate around things, or maybe get a guardianship, which you don't want to do that. Anyway, it applies to everyone. And one of my goals, and Kim laughs at this, but someday I know that God's going to bless parenting aging parents and me in some way, but I want to make sure that everyone gets a will. Because can you imagine with going through with your mom, if she hadn't had a will, going through everything with her,
not
just
at all.
having a house and any investments that she had in anything, and look at what happens to it, and having to wait forever. You still wouldn't have anything. You'd still be trying to clean up that estate if you didn't have that will, because it takes forever to go through probate without the will. So, boy, get that will, because all you're doing is, and we have people in our group who say, Dad won't talk about a will because he says, well, you're just trying to get my money. You just want to know how much money you're going to get. No, it's a gift. And even if you're giving your child zero, it's a gift to your child, because when you pass away, that means that your child has things easier as far as the paperwork, the cleaning up of the estate. Get that will. And I want to try and make it to where we can somehow, I'm still in the early process of this, but I want to figure out a way to be able to get a will for everyone who needs one, because so many people think, well, I can't afford one. Well, okay, yes, there are ways to where, okay, let me write out my last will and testament right here. Well, technically that could work if you have witnesses, but let's get a real one. Let's get a real one from great attorneys like Barnett and Leuty or whoever that can do it no matter where you are. And somehow I'm going to get PAP to make sure it happens. But that's my distant dream.
Well, I think that's something that I know will happen. Your reach is improving. Your reach is endless. Yeah. And hopefully teaming up with this, it can only help for all of us, all of our spheres of people. I have to add this, because of these documents, I have not had to go through probate.
Right.
And I pulled there's a soundbite on PAP, Parenting Aging Parents Facebook page, just to briefly touch on the Lady Bird deed from your guys, Barnett and Leuty, and mainly Leuty, who was the guy who helped me a lot, but that entire firm helped out considerably. This is what a Lady Bird deed is.
And Lady Bird deeds are a document that you sign either you sign while you have mental capacity to do so, or your power of attorney can sign it on your behalf. And that allows you to transfer ownership in your real estate upon your death immediately without the need of having to go through probate. Mm-hmm. So since Jeff was talking about the length of probate being 3 or 4 months and the costs involved, there is a way around that. And Texas is one of the few states that does have Lady Bird deeds.
It's Mike.
Yes.
As you said, I mean, some people don't own property.
Right.
But for those that do it, regardless of how small it is, it can be a snag in the entire process.
Yeah.
And this, just because of where we are with the economy, the house was on the market for 54 days. There were 3 buyers. I'm just taking it for example. But all I had to do, this is what I would love for everyone to know. All I had to do. Well, I was on this, and a lot of people told me to slow down, but this was like the week after, 2 weeks after I jumped on it. Went down to the Travis County Central Appraisal Office, showed them the Lady Bird deed. They didn't have on file that my father had passed in 1986. But through communication, I found that out. found something that proved that he died.
Mm-hmm.
And because my mom had not completed the transfer of removing him and her become 100%.
It's just her name. Yeah.
We got it done in 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it was done that day, but had to go through the protocol.
Yeah.
And instead of that, think about what that would have been like for probate court.
Yeah. It would have taken months. And that's if you have a great will and it's clean. If there are any problems that arise and you don't have a will, that's going to take years. It's going to take so long, and all it's going to do is hang over you, because whether you want to sell it for you and the rest of the family, whether you want to move into it, you want to rent it out, whatever you want to do, you're hamstrung because nobody really owns it yet. You don't have it yet. No one, other people in your family don't have it yet. It's just sitting there, and you just don't want that. You want to, again, take those crises away so that you can focus on what's important.
What would you say that's not included in that list? Because I know there are so many different avenues and documents and ways to prepare. And even for not only just for our parents, and I'm sure it comes up, let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Let's prepare. This applies to all of us. You're a parent. I'm an uncle. I mean, we have to think about that too. Does that ever come up on your platforms?
Oh, sure. Because they're unfortunately, with the way the legal system is, there's lots of documents. There's a HIPAA release. Technically, if you get a doctor and doctors are great, but if you get a doctor who's going to play by the rules, that if dad's in the hospital, you may go to the hospital, and if you don't have any type of documentation, he doesn't have to tell you anything about what's wrong with dad, what has to happen, or anything like that. But there's a HIPAA release. There's the medical directive. It has to do with, what do you want? At what point do you not want to be resuscitated? Right. At what point do you have a mom or dad who's in their 90s and they're just not doing good? But if they don't have a medical directive, when someone has described this, when EMS comes, EMS will do their job and they'll try to save her or him. Do you want that to happen? Do they want that to happen? And that's another important document. But you mentioned about documents again. I mentioned earlier that I felt prepared with my mom and dad, and they gave me a copy of their will and their powers of attorney years ago, and I've always had it, and so I've always thought that's good. And because Kim and I thought we wanted to be good parents back in '97 when our oldest Brandon was born, we're like, we're going to get a will, but we're not going to spend much money on it. We'll go buy a floppy disk will. You got to put it in the computer and enter in the blanks. Okay, Michael J. and Kimberly Z. Barnes, all that stuff. And we got it typed up. It's a little 2-page will, printed it out, took it to my dad's office up in Dallas and had it notarized. And a couple of people who worked with my dad signed it as the witnesses. And it's like, we are great parents. That is great. We brought it home. We gave my mom and dad a copy. We gave Kim's mom a copy. We put it in our file. It's like, this is great. And about two years ago, when we started Parenting Aging Parents, we did an interview with an attorney about wills and powers of attorney. And the attorney's speaking about things and talking about things. And Kim and I looked at each other and said, we never updated that when Taylor was born, did we?
18 years ago.
Our daughter was born in 00. So for more than 20 years, she was never in the will. Now, I'm sure that something would have happened, but Brandon would have gotten any money we had and hopefully taken care of his sister. But you got to think of these things. And we hadn't really, we're young. We're not going to die anytime soon. We're not worried about it. We have a will, but it wasn't updated. And it's the same thing we have so many people who talk about the power of attorney, because when you have a power of attorney, you're basically granting that power to someone. And what you do is you list off, okay, first person on my power of attorney is Kim. And the second person is, I think, Brandon. And the third person is Taylor, my daughter. So, well, that's good. Well, but if you don't have kids yet and you say, okay, let's see, I'm 25 years old. My power of attorney, I'll make my dad power of attorney number one, because he's good with money and he's an accountant. Okay, number two, I'll make my mom number two. Number three, I'll make my uncle number three. Okay, that's fine. Again, you're being you're ahead of the game. But when you get older, when you're in your 50s and you have your mom and your dad and your uncle who are in their 80s, it's like, okay, that's not good. You don't want someone that old to be your power of attorney. No offense to them, but if something happens to all of them, you're out of luck. So again, it goes back to, just because you get it now, look in the future and see if you need to update it because you have kids or because of age or whatever it is. That's the hard thing, though, about all these legal documents, is that things need to be changed. Things need to be updated. Got to keep on top of things as you get older and mature and your life changes.
You know, just from recent experience, and I know you've had these conversations, I could not believe how powerful it was. And I got to share this story once I tell you, when you have beneficiaries listed on all financial accounts, beneficiaries for everything.
Yeah.
So here's the story. And I had no idea. Something told me, because I had been in touch with my mom's financial, Edward Jones, where she had some investments. And I was using that to pay for her caregivers, take out X amount quarterly.
Right.
And I was power of attorney, the durable power of attorney. So literally the week that she passed away, I didn't know. I called the lady. She was amazing. And I said, hey, by any chance, are there any beneficiaries listed on her accounts? And she said no. She says, but since you're power of attorney, we can do that.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, she passed away. I mean, this is the kind of the information that you and Kim, you're motivated to pass the message down, not preach it, but give the people these resources, these experiences. And this is the kind of information that I'm afraid that if I didn't know it, imagine how many other people were not aware of that, or to even bother and look.
Right. And that goes back to the biggest thing. Yes, it's important to get a will. Yes, it's important to get a power of attorney. It's important to get all these legal documents. But the biggest thing that you need to do is communicate. You've got to talk, whether it's talk with your spouse, talk with your mom, talk with your dad, talk with your kids, whoever it may be. But talk to make sure that you understand what the situation is, what the game plan is, and make sure that you're on the same page and that you're ready. That you're ready for whatever is coming. You know, you and your sister are a great example. It's great that you've talked. You're not on the exact same page about everything, but you've talked, as opposed to doing nothing and then mom passes away and you want to do this and she wants to do that and you're bickering and it's a stressful time anyway.
Yeah.
Now you put this on top of everything, and you see that so many times that. Unfortunately, siblings don't get along when the pressure hits, when that crisis hits, because Kim likes to say, however things were when you were a kid, it rises back. If one of you was mom's favorite, or one of you was mom never liked you, or you were always the one mom always gave money to, or you were the one that stole this from mom or gave this to mom, or whatever it was, that comes back. And it can cause friction, maybe not on a normal time, but when you're all, gosh, this is terrible because I've got so much to do and I'm worried about mom, and you're in that crisis mode and you got thin skin, and then these siblings don't get along. And you've got to talk to your siblings about things. Talk to your mom and dad about things. Make sure that they're open and they've told you things. I love to tell the story about the fact that my grandfather was in World War I. Long time ago.
Wow.
Never went overseas. It was at the very end of the war. He would think he was in the Army for like 3 or 4 months, but he was a veteran. Well, when he retired at 65 or so, he never got any veterans benefit. He didn't know. And then when he was 80, how old was he? He was 84. He had a stroke. And something caused my dad, I think, in the process of doing things, at one of the hospitals when my granddad was being treated, somebody said, "Was your dad a veteran?" My dad's like, "Yeah, actually he was." Well, he didn't do anything, but he was in World War I. Oh, you need to do this and this and this. Come to find out, my grandfather had missed 20 years of veterans benefits, never got those back. But starting then, the VA helped my grandfather get some rehabilitation, so he got a little bit better, and he lived 4 more years, or 5 more years. But anyway, during that time, he got some veterans benefits. He got some rehab because of being a veteran, and nobody knew it because nobody ever talked about it. And you've got to communicate these things. It's kind of like the Edward Jones and who's your beneficiary. If your mom said, "Oh, and Sean, you're my beneficiary on all my accounts," or something like that, then you'd know. But if no one talks, whether it's again mom or dad or you or your kids or whoever it is, you got to communicate, because once you communicate, again, let's lower that crisis level. Lower it as much as we can so we can concentrate on just on what the problem is.
That's well spoken. Right. Those are the crisis mode is take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And engage in conversation to remove said crisis or potential stressors. Because we're human. We're not going to agree on everything, but I was very lucky. My sister and I, we communicated almost every day, every other day. I'd be on the phone with her, and or I would text or email what I did back here, because she's in a different place, different city, just to have it on record. And this is all great information. Now I know this is all positive and good, but let's literally end this thing with some positivity.
Hey man, tell me something good.
Hey, parenting aging parents is better than good. It's great. But, right now, as we were recording this, it is Thanksgiving week.
Yes.
Lots to be thankful for. It's the first conversation I think you and I have ever had that didn't involve anything sports related. But tell me something good that's going on in your world that maybe society or community or this platform right here, what people can benefit from you that you've seen that's great or good.
Wow. What a tough question. I told the story. But some people don't know that I referee football games now. Mm-hmm. I missed after I left the sportscasting business. I missed the fun of Friday nights. I was really known for my time on Friday Football Fever, and everywhere I'd go, people would say something about it. But I missed Friday nights. That first year, I was still kind of numb about things and missed it. The second year, I thought about, because I know some officials, some referees, and they'd mentioned it in the past. I always thought, I always would like to do that. I've refereed some intramural games in my youth, so I thought maybe I'll do that sometime. Well, I thought about doing it in 20, but it was COVID. I didn't know if there'd even be football in the fall. It sounds selfish, but I didn't really want to go through all the training and then come to find out, oh, sorry, no season, can't do anything. So I put it off. So I started doing it in 21, and this is my third year to do it. I did 110 games from October to last week.
Wow.
Which was a blast. All levels, from varsity, junior varsity, freshman, middle school, Pop Warner on Saturdays. It's a blast. I could tell you lots of stories about fans and parents and coaches and even some players, but we'll keep it positive. And here's my story. My story is that I did games at I don't know if you know where there's a rugby club over off of Loyola in East Austin.
Is it real? I did not know that.
Yeah, my very first Saturday, and I guess it was either Saturday of Labor Day, or maybe it was the next one. It was a week after Labor Day. Anyway, I went there and I refereed 4 or 5 games on a Saturday, and one of the teams was the home team from the East Austin area, and I have a thing as a parent and just a fuddy-duddy. When I see a shoe untied, I usually say, hey, 21, let's tie your shoe. Yeah, I don't want you to trip and fall because your shoe's untied. That's just the way parents get when you have kids. Well, when you're doing young, because some of my games are either flag or even tackle that are 6 and under, 8 and under, sometimes even 10 and under, or can be like this, where it's like, can you tie it for me? Sure. Well, I tie a lot of shoes during Saturday football. So I tied several shoes that day. Well, a couple weeks later, I'm in Leander up at Bible Stadium, and I'm for the games I had that day, I was on one of the sidelines, the head linesman. So I'm right on the line of scrimmage on the sideline. So I'm over there as they're going to do the coin toss. I'm over on my sideline to get ready, and the team's lined up to watch the coin toss. I go by and I just give a little fist bump to all these little kids that are 7 and 8 years old. Just a little fist bump. Well, one of them looks up at me and says, "Hey, I know you. You tied my shoe." I said, "Yep, that was me." And then the kid looks up at me and says, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "Sure." He gave me a hug because I tied his shoe 2 weeks before. Now, tying a shoe is not a big deal. And it's not going to change this kid's life. He's not going to become a Pro Bowl running back because of me tying his shoe. He's not going to become a doctor or an attorney because I tied his shoe. But I affected his life because I tied his shoe. You can affect people's lives with the smallest of things. You don't have to be rich and powerful to do that. Sometimes all it takes is tying a shoe. Look for ways to do that. You can touch people's lives. There are many ways you can do it. Tying a shoe is one of them.
I still need help tying shoes. That's a beautiful story, very powerful, because we're in a world right now where, man, it just all it takes is one step back or one breath or hit pause and realize, is it really that? Do I really need to be triggered over that?
Yeah.
Or people just say, "Hey, we have differences, but I want to help you."
Yeah.
You know, it's very simple. And in this holiday season, it's a great time to do that. I do think, though, if I'm going to tell anything good, I do think we see a lot more good this time of year than any other time frame of the year.
That's true.
So lots to be thankful for. And I am thankful that you dedicated some time to share the Parenting Aging Parents story and to help where you and I we're on the same mission. We want to just communicate.
Yeah.
And I want to I'm not going to say, don't do this, don't do that. But one thing you do need to do for your parents, for yourself, for your sanity, and just for the love of your parents and love for your kids, visit Parenting Aging Parents. Subscribe it, like it, follow it, and don't put off. I know this is such a cliche or an old saying. Don't put off now for tomorrow what you can do now. It's simple. Start planning right now, because I'm just doing it by example. If I would have waited 2 or 3 more months, I would not have gotten it done for my mother, and I would be going through the court system right now, and it would have made it much more difficult and probably a lot more painful.
Yes.
Yeah. Barnsey, I appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime.
Hey, good luck. Keep up the great work, you and Kim and you guys following. Subscribe, like, follow Parenting Aging Parents. We are out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.